Hello and welcome to this edition of Motivation and Money with me, Mark Terrell, and Fanny Snaith, my co-presenter. How are you today, Fanny?
I'm excellent, thank you. Very good, all good. Like happy to be a little bit cooler.
Oh yes, it's rained here. I don't know if it's rained there, but we're not that far apart, are we? But
A little
yes, rain.
bit.
We
Um,
celebrated rain yesterday. So,
Do a rain dance. I can imagine you doing a rain dance in between your burpees.
yeah,
Honoured for
no, I don't do
being.
them anymore. I've done that. Yes, I did go out in the rain, as you do, thinking, "Oh, thank the Lord for it." Anyway,
Right.
Here we are today to talk about cash. Are you still using it? Are you still using cash? So this was interesting because it's funny how two things happen. So the reason why I thought this was a good topic was that Fanny obviously talks about money, and there's the cash implication there, obviously. The other thing was that I was walking past there was a co-op store just up the road. Outside was a big issue seller, and rather than ask me, like they do, big issue, buy a big issue, he didn't say anything like that. He just said, "I've got contactless if you want to pay with your card." And I thought that's interesting. So they've obviously adapted. Obviously, it's becoming a problem where people are saying, like, a lot of the time I don't have any cash on me. So most people are sort of saying that. I don't know whether that people are just saying that for an excuse. So they say, well, I can't because I haven't got any cash. I don't know. But um, so it was just interesting that even big issues sellers are adapting to like a cashless society. Um, so I think I should throw it over to you, Fanny, to give us some thought starters around, your thoughts on the implications of cashless societies, how far down the line we are with regards to that.
Well, I'm not going to. I have as many questions as I think many other people do.
Hmm.
Like, for instance, is cash safe? I'm looking. I'm got these various screens. So I'm having a look at the government website, which is new powers to protect access to cash,
Hmm.
which is dated Thursday, the 19th of May, 2022. So it's sort of saying that the government's going to protect it. However, I was reading an article this week in iNews, quite like iNews, where they mentioned a book called Cloud Money: Cash, Cards, Crypto, and the War for Our Wallets by a chap called Brett Scott. And apparently he digs it. I haven't read it yet, but apparently he digs into the whole, the world of money and how it is going to be withdrawn. I mean, if you think about COVID, for instance, it was a wonderful way to start withdrawing cash in the world, globally. And I've read various other articles on how they start withdrawing cash. So they say that they start withdrawing a banknote, or for instance, you may just withdraw all the £50 notes, or they might, and they just gradually just start shrinking it down, so there just becomes less and less. However, I think the thing is that with everything there is a huge gap to say that we're not ready to go completely cashless.
Mm.
For instance, my daughter, she catches the stagecoach bus from Cheltenham to Cirencester, well, she did. And she doesn't carry cash, basically. So she just has her card, Starling Bank card.
Hmm.
And on a number of occasions, she got on the bus and it didn't work.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, now what? So we don't have cash. Can't give any change, even if she did have a cash, if she had a £10 note, etc. So
Mm.
you're sort of almost stuck. And this lady in this iNews thing was saying, she was driving her electric car and going to top it up. She was running out of juice,
Hmm.
and the machine didn't work with her card. And it was like it was the only one that was there, and it was a tester, and it said, if there are any problems with this machine, call this number, and there was no number there. So it's like we just don't have, we're not seamless yet.
No.
So how does that work when you have when there's a hole? That's my thing.
Yeah.
Sorry, just one other thing I was going to say. My other thought is, it does worry me, and that if all of our money is electronic and the electricity goes down,
Mm.
Come on.
Yeah, there's a thought.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's interesting that we're talking about money or cash being a fallback scenario. Well, there was, I noticed yesterday, the local bakery had a sign saying, sorry, cash only today. So obviously, exactly what's
Oh,
happened.
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
not
yeah,
exactly, but so obviously their card machine isn't working. So they can't take card payments. So the only way that they can take money is cash.
yeah. And
Um,
I was at a festival, albeit a mini festival, a couple of weeks ago, and they had one of those, where you walk around with those machines. I've got a sum up machine, the
mhm.
little sum up thing.
Yep.
I've got one of those as well. Great. I mean, they only cost $29.99. Really easy to hook up to Stripe or wherever it might be, which then just puts the money into your bank after taking a small fee from it. Marvelous idea, fantastic. But no kidding me, I was in the beer tent buying some drinks, and the people behind the bar, of which there was loads of space and it wasn't very busy because it was early afternoon, they were sort of walking around trying to get a signal. It was like,
I
hold on a
know.
minute, yeah,
Waving
hold
it
on.
around, yeah, as they do.
Exactly. So I
Mm,
think that's the problem, is
mm,
that it's all very well to come into a new system, but it's got to work. Do you know the most amazing transition I think I've ever seen, not from cash, but from an analog system to a digital system,
mhm.
is getting our tax disc for the car. I
Right.
think that's got to be what we call a huge success, hasn't it?
Yeah, well, we
Because now,
don't buy tax discs anymore, do we? We just do it online, and they sort of scan the
but that's
roads to
the
catch
thing. And
anybody that hasn't paid their tax.
well, that's it. And they check that you've got insurance. They check that you've got an MOT. You don't need to put a
Yeah.
disc in the car anymore. And I mean, from what we used to have to do to go to the post office and all that kind of malarkey,
Mm,
it's very, very smooth transition.
yeah.
But we've got this thing going on now where if we are transitioning to cash, and I've been to a number of places where they say, sorry, no cash. I'm sure you know,
Hmm. Yeah.
but it doesn't always work, does it?
No, no, that's it. But so I was just going to go back to my retail days, and
Yeah.
I, back then, I think about 2/3 of our business was still in cash. So we're talking about
Yeah. When are we talking?
9 years ago. Nine
Right.
years ago, we were last sort of trading as in a retail environment, and
Hmm.
it was interesting how some retailers actually hung on to. They didn't want to take cards because they just saw it as a cost. But we saw that. I mean, this is typical of our sort of the way we saw things was that there is a cost to handle cash because you've got to
Yeah.
take it and you've got to count it, you've got to bundle it up, you've got to fill it in the form, you've got to take it to the. So there is a big cost in that. It's like managing cash is a big issue, and so we had a sort of a cash machine in the store, which were called self-fill cash machines. So
That
in the
sounds
later
like
days,
a
so
good
we
idea.
basically would find you'd have to sort of like almost iron all the notes so that they didn't get caught in the machine, and then we basically recycle that cash into our cash machine. So people would come in, get cash
Ah,
out, and use it. And that was the way we made it free because there's lots of cash machines around there that charge you.
yeah.
That's because whoever's obviously somebody manages it and pays for it to be there, so they've got to get their money back somehow. So these aren't ones that banks have put in place.
That's sort of crazy. So they're walking in with a card. They put the
Mm.
card into the machine and get out essentially then what become tokens.
Yeah, that's what I
So
say. Yeah.
are they tickets? Get
Yes.
tickets. Spend the tickets in the shop.
Hmm.
You take the tickets and put them back in the machine.
Yeah, it's just almost like this circle keeps coming in. They spend them, then we get back in.
Mad.
Obviously, so it was a way of actually reducing our bank charges because every time you paid cash in. So that's another thing to explain. When most people would think that you have to, you put money into the bank, you don't. There's no charge. Well, no, there
No,
isn't any charge for consumers, but there is a charge for businesses. So for
yeah,
everything you pay in, there's a charge.
yeah,
And it actually they charge more for us to pay in obviously £1,000 in cash than a check for £1,000. It was a
yeah,
lot cheaper to pay in a check or transactions going through electronically.
yeah.
It was a lot cheaper
And
than cash.
that's still the same.
Yeah.
So I was talking online when I put a post about cash yesterday, and I said I think it's free with Starling, and actually no, it isn't. I got that wrong.
Hmm.
So they Starling charge, and this is obviously only one of the banks. £3 or 0.7%, whichever is the higher, for cash to go into the post office. So
Right.
I'm assuming that's sort of like a post office fee. Yet, if you have a check, you can scan the check on your telephone, and that you don't even have to take the check into the bank.
Yeah, that's where it's going, isn't it? Yeah, you don't even have to. Yeah,
So
which is interesting.
going back to this, so as far as I can see here, and I'm not quite sure, in the last figure I can see is 2020, February 2020, 1.2 million people, I'm assuming adults of age, are unbanked in this country still.
How many?
1.2 million
1.2 million haven't got a bank account. Wow.
haven't got a bank account. So that's them sorted,
Yeah,
right? So
so they're definitely using cash.
yeah. So for them, that means no direct debits for anything, which quite often you get slightly cheaper. So,
Yeah.
God, it's crazy, isn't it? I can't. Can you imagine what it must be like with not have a bank account? Can you even imagine what it would be like?
No,
Bank
no,
account?
not this day and age, no.
I don't even remember life before I had a bank account.
No. Anyway, if you just joined us, we talk about cash, and we'd love your comments. Anything you'd like to think to share with us about whether you still use cash, where do you use cash, do you avoid it, or do you always keep some in your wallet? All those sort of things would be interesting to find out around your attitude towards cash.
It was interesting that I think everybody I know has always said, or of a certain age, right, before the digital age, so older people, always they tend to be the ones that will say carry cash. My good friend Andrew Priestley, he always carries around, he always says carry cash because it gets you to know the value of it.
Yeah.
I sort of agree with that, but then on the other hand, I just tend to use a card, but then I go onto an app every day and check my card payments. So, so I sort of look at the number of card payments in a day. They do say that you tend to spend more on card than you do on cash.
I was saying, I put a comment on your post, didn't I, about it? I mean, when you tap, there's no sort of, it's a bit different than actually counting out the cash, and there's your
No, there
money.
isn't.
The
No, there isn't.
transaction's a lot different. I mean, it's easier, but then is it actually
I agree.
registering as what we're spending?
I agree, but then on the other hand, what I tend to teach my clients and students is that even whether you're thinking about making the transaction or not, by looking at the transactions each day, you start to train your brain to think about the transaction that you make before you make it, because you'll know you're going to see it on a screen later. I have no other choice of how to help people with it, because if cash is going to go, I don't think that it would be that it's really clever of me to teach young people to start using cash. I don't think that's going to serve a purpose for them.
Right.
Really, both my daughters have been brought up in a cashless society, but I teach them or encourage them to use a challenger bank, to use something where you can put pots and stash money, and they're very, very much attached to this, and they see it the same way as counting out money and putting it in separate jars. So in order for them to so like for instance, Ren's gone to town today to have a beauty treatment, getting ready for results day on Thursday, and she will pull that money out of one of the spaces on Starling, and that for her is like going to a piggy bank, pulling out money. She sees the balance go down and pulling it into her current account, and that's how she's using it. So I think that's about the closest you can get to cash. Cash for me, also, tell you one thing I really don't like about cash, it's bloody dirty.
Yeah, well, that's right, exactly. Who knows what's. I mean, my mum used to count most of our cash that went through our retail business. I mean, I bought a machine once, actually weighed it, saved her hours in time. But obviously, it's not a perfect scenario where you obviously,
no,
like you say, you get some pretty grotty notes come through sometimes. But.
Yeah, I mean, and really seriously, it's a bit like peanuts on a bar, isn't it?
Yes, we won't go into that.
So I don't know. I don't. I don't really know what I think about cash. I
Yeah,
think
no, I was going to share something that well, last night actually. My partner's son came around for dinner with us, and he said, "Oh, I've realised how expensive Christmas is now, and so much so I've set up a separate bank account to put money in it for Christmas." And I thought that was really interesting. It's not something I would have ever thought of doing, but so he's sort of budgeting for
Well, that's what I when I
yeah.
my money mapping system
Mm,
does that with every um, unregulated, not fixed, variable cost. Every variable cost, you
yeah,
start putting money away every month into that pot or into that separate thing.
yeah.
Definitely,
I suppose you
every
then know what you put in there and how much you spent. That's the thing, because I suppose the one thing about cash is if you had, say, £200, once it's gone, it's gone. You know you had 200. Now you haven't. You spent 200. If you've
you
got
got
it
no way.
separated in a different pot, you know as you're spending it what it started with, and when it's gone again in the same way. So you can sort of track it and have a bit more
Yeah,
control, I guess.
I don't know if you can see that, but there's it. Can you see that?
Hmm.
Oh, God, it's so weird. My fingers all backwards.
Hmm.
Oh, hang on. The one which looks like a little wallet.
Yes.
Oh, hang on. These are my money apps.
Right.
3 pages of them. So there's an app that does this, and that's where I would record my cash as and when I use it. But I so
Oh,
rarely
okay.
use it now. It's a really imaginatively named app. It's called Spending Tracker,
Right.
but it looks like a little wallet. Can you see that little wallet?
Where are we?
We're
Uh,
looking. Oh, the other side over here, middle
oh,
right,
yes, yes, got it. Very nice. Yeah,
little wallet. Yeah.
excellent.
So, but so still, you should really be tracking your cash the same way as you track your digital spending.
Yeah,
What I
that's like
I mean,
anything. Yeah, if you don't
surely,
measure it, then you can't control it.
yeah. So one of the famous ways of looking after your money, what do they call it? The envelope system.
Hmm.
So you get the money out at the beginning of the month or the beginning of the week. I mean, beginning of the week, and then you divide it up between all the envelopes that you need.
Yeah,
It's just
one
so
for
hard these days.
one for electric, one for gas,
One for electric, one for
and one for
gas, one for
groceries.
yeah. You used to be able to buy things like that, didn't you? That was all
Yeah,
separated. You could put things in, but it's just too hard, I think now, unless you're unbanked.
yeah,
But you're penalised if you're unbanked. You're certainly penalised for energy.
yeah. Well, I
So
mean that's because it's obviously going back to the business scenario I was explaining with the retail. We saw that taking cash was expensive, cost us money to process, whereas a transaction, an electronic transaction, credit or debit card, was it was gone through, and the next day it was in our bank account without us having to do much else.
yeah,
There was still a fee, but overall, it makes sense to do it. But some
yeah,
people refuse to take it because they see it only as a cost, not as something that saved money to allow other things to happen.
yeah. Our local takeaway only takes cash.
Yeah, well, we won't get into that because I think there's probably other reasons why that is.
Do you?
We won't be. Yeah,
No, no,
yeah.
you don't.
I've heard
No.
some lots of stories about our suppliers being paid by cash by some takeaway
Right.
outlets, and the funny stories behind it. But we're not here to go into that.
No.
It's
So,
about the
let's talk about
what do we still carry it?
well,
Is it still
what
important
about
in the economy?
what about youngsters? So when you used to get a birthday card with a fiver in it or something, didn't you? And
I send my nieces and nephews cash.
do you still do that?
Yeah. My brother, though, he just transfers it into the bank account. But I just like to be able to sort of find a nice note, put it in their card, say "Happy Birthday" from Uncle Mark, and they're still being able to open up their card, and it's nice to have a bit of a note to fall out of the card, isn't it?
And what about the tooth fairy?
Oh gosh, I don't know about that. Do they still pay? Must. I suppose that still exists. People still
Yeah,
get cash for their
I think
teeth.
it's about £1 a tooth now.
Is it really?
I think so. I think so. It's interesting though, isn't it? So
Right.
I'm looking at another website here. It says in 2019. So much has happened since 2019, though, hasn't it?
Mm.
That's the problem. 97% of British consumers say they carry cash on them, but that was 2019.
What was percentages? Sorry.
97%.
All right. Okay. Be interested to know how much they carry though, what they see as it, because I mean most people carry it just as a buffer, as a just in case, don't they? I think so. What do they see as just their sort of emergency sort of fallback cash in their wallets? You know, how much is that? How much do they keep? Be interested to know, wouldn't it?
I don't know. And I mean the other part of it is now is that I think I don't know about you, but do you use store cards? Do you like Tesco
No.
Club cards and things like
Oh,
that?
oh yeah. I'd use the club card to get the points, but I don't use what used to be. You used to
No,
be able to take out a card, and then they sort of like give you a discount if you took out one of their cards, and
yeah, no, I don't use those.
and then
But look,
well, that's mostly.
those are my store cards. I just have them all on an app.
So that's your loyalty cards, yeah?
Those are loyalty. That's what I meant,
Yeah.
loyalty cards.
Yeah.
So loyalty cards are done on here. I don't tend to pay for my phone. I tend to use the cards, but actually, you don't even need the card anymore, do you?
No.
Because you just go boop,
Boop.
like that.
Yep.
Which is a bit scary. I don't know. I think it's going to be a bit sad when you. I tend to leave. I tell you where I use cash. I tend to leave a tip in a restaurant with cash.
Yes, that's always nice, isn't it? And then you just ask to make sure that it goes to the right people that served you, or at least the people that served you and the the kitchen staff. Yeah.
So I don't know. It's
The interesting thing, I've just to share actually, it's interesting you talk about tips there, and I was like going off piste, but we were in Malchesney in Italy a few weeks ago, and not one restaurant sort of gave you the card and gave you the option to add a tip. So I presume they just assume that if you're going to leave a tip, it's going to be in cash. They don't give you the option to add it to the card
and it
payment.
wasn't already included.
Hmm?
It wasn't already included.
No.
So, something interesting here. Physical currency is experiencing a resurgence.
Yeah.
In the US, currency in circulation by the end of 2021 is estimated 2.07 trillion, which will be the highest level since post-war 1945.
Wow. So that indicates that people are using more cash. Yeah, is that what it's saying? If it's in circulation?
Does it mean? Do you think it means if prices start to rise, cash will become king again?
Well, I think it's a way of managing your cash. I know that it's not, it's maybe not as efficient as using an app and all that you've shared there. But I think that for some people, that if they've got a budget to work to and they work it out, so I've got a budget to this week of £100, £200. The only way they can really manage that is to have it in cash, so that when it's gone, it's gone. I was listening to the guy that runs Malcolm Walker, that runs Iceland supermarkets, this morning on the breakfast, and he was saying, yeah, he knows his stuff, doesn't he? But he was saying that a lot of people, because they're coming up, they're bringing out a system where you can apply for a loan at the till, bit like, it's not like splitting the payments. It's much more ethical than that. But he was saying that they're getting more and more people saying, I've only got 30 quid, stop when you get to 30 or whatever, £40. Once you get to 40, then just stop ringing stuff up and the rest will have to go back.
But with modern banking, you can do that already. This is the thing. So this is another part of it, isn't it? Is our mindset trapped in the fact that you can only put restrictions on yourself because it's what you've got? I mean, I know when you go out and all that kind of stuff, people say, "Oh, I'm just going to take 30 quid cash out with me." Chances are they've got a card as well, and then the card comes out and they trash the cash. But I know now you can have a certain amount set in your current account and put the other money aside somewhere else, so it's not there. It's interesting, though, isn't it? So we're using cash as a restrictor.
Yeah, I suppose you could say that. You could say restricting overspending, because I could say it's a lot easier. Tapping is one that makes it easy, but it's easy to spend and easy to lose control, I suppose.
It is, but then on the other hand, if you're using an app like Money Dashboard and you have a budget set for, say, groceries, every time you spend on it, you can see that budget going down.
Yeah. I mean,
I
I
don't
use I put everything on one card, and so you can see straight away nowadays it's updated straight away. Anything pending transactions that haven't reached your account, so you know exactly what you spent. Um,
Yeah. So
so
I don't
yeah,
know. So I suppose the question is then, are we just being old-fashioned, clinging on to cash? Are we? Because
I
everything that you've told me that is like, oh, people want to use cash this, I've come up with something that does
mhm,
the same,
yeah.
but just with a little bit of a different mindset.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there's obviously ways that you can get away with not using cash, but I think if there's still over 1 million people that don't have a bank account, they're always going to use cash. There's
Yeah.
no option, is there?
No, but
Yeah,
if you
so
if there was no cash, they'd probably have to have a bank account, wouldn't they?
they would have to find a way to give them a bank
Or
account.
for
Yeah,
them, for them, I mean, for people that are unbanked, if you want to send money across the world, the easiest way to send money to people that way is to do it via cryptocurrency.
yeah.
But it seems to me, and you're going to think this is a bit of a joke, but I'm absolutely serious. The only thing that I can't see easily replaced if we were not having cash is the tooth fairy.
That's a good reason to keep cash.
But it's serious though, isn't it?
Yes. Well, I suppose so. What parents given to their kids, yeah. But it goes back to what I do with my niece and nephew. Just gives them
Yeah,
some
but you
cash,
could,
and
yeah,
it's
but
nice to get some.
you could write a note in the car saying, "I've just transferred 20 quid to your bank
No,
account."
I don't know. I always remember that thing as just opening your card out and the cash falls out. You
Yeah,
think,
but it's
oh,
all,
I've got some money to spend. Obviously
they,
a check's as just as nice, but then you have to go and pay it in.
yeah, but the thing is with the cash as well, they'll just go, "Oh God, I didn't really, I just had this cash. Oh, I don't know. Now I've just got all this hassle of like trying to work out how to spend it."
Yes.
I don't know. I'm just trying to be like play devil's advocate
Yeah,
here.
no, I mean, there's no right or wrong, is there? I mean, cash is still here for a foreseeable future, but who knows? I mean, we're just sharing what we've experienced and what we think about cash, but
I mean,
everyone's got their own sort of views and
yeah.
on how much they use it.
So really, then the tooth fairy requires cash, and the other thing is if the electrics go out or the
Yeah,
banking system goes down,
yeah. So you can't
then we
that
then we're properly stuffed,
exactly.
aren't
So
we?
I think that's a good place to leave it because just to think about what would happen if there was no electricity and there was no possible way to get your money out of the bank. There'd be a run on the banks. They'd be queuing outside the door. Get me
Well,
up.
this
Give
is
me
the
my
thing.
money.
I have often thought about getting a safe and stashing the cash, stashing some cash.
Yes, yeah. And we've all. I'm sure you've got somebody in your family that was known for sort of having a load of cash underneath the bed or kept it in a
Not
certain place.
no,
No,
actually,
no.
no, actually,
Oh,
no, 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 not. My
really?
dad used to have this lovely. In fact, I've got it on the piano. But my dad used to have this lovely box, which old-fashioned wooden box that used to lift up the lid, and it would have two sort of wells in there, and those would be filled with coins. I remember stealing those.
Right.
Quick sniff, one in your pocket.
Right.
Didn't we all do that, eh?
I don't think my dad. I mean, he passed away sort of 12 years ago now, but he never had a credit or debit card. It was always cash.
Really?
Yeah, never.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. Both my parents both had
Yeah,
cards. My dad actually did. He did use cash a fair bit, but it's just a man's wallet, isn't it?
I think that was it. He liked to have the sort of like the bit of folding and bring out his notes and that. And the funny, just briefly before we wrap up, we went to Florida golfing once with me and another group, and my dad was taken ill, and he had the cash that we needed for the holiday, and
Oh.
just as they were sort of taken away in the to hospital, and he said, "The cash is in the attic." I was like, "What the hell does he mean?" Literally, so he'd had obviously got some cash, and he didn't want to carry it around with him, so he'd found a little cubby hole, and it was just like you push the attic, and it was just stuck inside the attic. He was obviously thought, well, if I'm not here, I don't know how long I'm going to be not here. They'll need the cash. So, all
And
right.
then a television show was born.
Cash in the attic, indeed. Yeah. Anyway, Right.
Fun.
That was interesting. Half an hour flown by again.
I
So
know, so
hopefully, if you catch this on replay, it's interesting. Be interesting to find out what your thoughts are on cash.
yeah,
What drives you to use cash or not use it? That would be sort of a motivational spin on it. But yeah, I think it's an interesting subject, especially as we've got some interesting times going on at the moment with regards to prices going up and people having to sort of adapt to higher prices and all the other things that people have strategies they place. And some people are introducing strategies and that involves having more cash and using more cash. So there we are. Anyway, Fanny, anything to finish off with before we go our separate ways?
there was one phrase that came to my mind was that, he's like, how much for cash? Remember?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, indeed. There always used to be a discount for cash. Is there still a discount for cash? I suppose
Well,
there is in certain worlds, wherever you're buying. But not second-hand cars, because at the moment they're just ridiculous
not
prices.
second-hand cars, and not where the person receiving it has got to put it in the bank.
Yes,
So we
indeed.
know where that's going then, don't we?
That's right. And yeah, for me, is there anything for me to share? Nothing particular. But if you want to contact either one of us, you'll see at the end of the show, you know where to find us, wherever you've been watching this, or our websites. So thank you again, Fanny. Really enjoyed it. And see you again next time. Bye for now.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Oh, excuse me. I've lost the end of the show. Hang on a minute. Hang on. And
Are we still live?
yeah, we're still live.
Oh.
Where's the end of the show gone? Oh my goodness.
Has it gone?
I've lost the end of the show.
Show?
Where's that gone? The end of show. Anyway, so we are back. We haven't got a proper end of show for some reason. It's gone. So anyway, nice. We'll see you all next time. Bye for now.